IVM.
This is Storytellers and Storysellers live on tape with Vineet Kanabar on the IVM Podcast Network. For those who've listened to this show, or for those who've just even seen the logo title, you'll know that the show has the word story in its title twice. And today, we're talking to someone who lives and breathes storytelling. Say hello to Rathy Sam. Welcome to the show, Rathy.
Hi, can you just call me Bhagirathi or Rathy?
Bhagirathi. That is your full name. Is that what the full... Oh, okay, cool. Fantastic. I'll stick with Rathy. Bhagirathi.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Lots of gravity with Bhagirathi. I'm not going to even try to introduce you. We spoke a few days ago and we know each other from Twitter. We spoke a few days ago about doing the show and you told me about the range of things that you do. And I don't think I'm qualified to give you an introduction at this point. So tell me this, how do you introduce yourself when you're asked to give an introduction?
So actually, I keep my introduction very short. I usually go for, I'm Rathy.
No, this is a podcast, so you can...
No, let me explain it to you. So I usually say, I'm Rathy, I'm a storyteller and a theatre artist. And then I give it a pause because I know several questions are coming my way. So immediately I'll get a confused look and I'll get, no, what do you do for actual living? What do you do full time? And I'll go, yes, I'm a storyteller and a theatre artist.
That's lovely.
And then it's just, how do you do it? How is this viable? How can you do full time? And then it goes into a full podcast answer of a 40-minute discussion of what all the things I do and how I do it and so on and so forth.
Yeah. I'm so glad I got you first then, because I'm pretty sure that the kind of stuff that you do and the things that you'll tell us about it are worthy of a great podcast episode. So brace yourself, listeners, for Rathy and her brand of storytelling. So Rathy, tell us, you're a theatre artist and a storyteller. I mean, it's fairly well understood what a theatre artist does, right? You're involved in stage productions. You're involved in, I'm sure you're involved in more intimate forms of theatre, which are off the stage as well. But what's a professional storyteller? What does that involve?
So my form of storytelling, or where the lane I chose, is very niche. I do storytelling for children in schools and of course in other festivals and stuff, but mostly in schools. So what happens is, in academia, the school is interested mostly in the technical part of it, making the students study the science, technology, engineering, math so much. Though they have a obligation to teach language, they don't give it much importance to it. And even English and Tamil or any other language, we are mostly concentrating on grammar, the syntax, the sentence, and how to hold a conversation and stuff. The joy out of learning a language and discovering a language is completely out of it. So what we do is introduce the art of, or rather introduce storybooks. We let the children discover the enjoy of reading a storybook by themselves. So we introduce a storybook, we tell a story up to a hook point, and just when the children are like, okay, what happened next? We'll snap the book out and say, you want to know what happens next? Read the book. And 80% of the time, the children are so interested to know what happens next. And they also added information, illustration, and how each character is chalked out in the book. They end up reading the book. So it's just joy of reading storybooks. That's what we do through storytelling.
That's fantastic. Sounds so great.
I did this through an organization. It's not mine. It was found by two IIT Madras graduates. It's called Multi-Story Learning Private Limited. That's the umbrella company. But what one of their major products is BLPS, Book Lovers Program for Schools. As the name says, it's just Book Lovers Program. And the encouragement we get from schools is amazing, because that's what we do. We walk into a school as if we are artists. We introduce we tell stories, we introduce storybooks, and we get mobbed by children. They just want to listen more, they want to read more. And especially we do with Indian authors, which unfortunately don't have that much reach what some foreign authors do. So we have this festival called Biblios, where we take Indian authors and illustrators to schools, very rural schools, and we make the children interact with them. It's just a different form of storytelling. It's done for a specific group. So
Right.
it's interesting to do it, yes.
It sounds fascinating. And I mean, I can't believe that something as formative, as important as, stories for children, right? Not just from it's a great pedagogy and they'll learn so much from it, but also from an engagement perspective, right? Because kids these days, and I know I'll sound like an old fart here saying, oh, bacche aajkal padhte nahi hai, and they have, or kids don't study these days and they are running around or whatever. And they've got iPads and Minecraft or whatever else that's happening in their lives. But it's super important to have stories told in an old school traditional way, which is the oral tradition of storytelling, right?
That's one of the key points we use when we are approaching school, or rather, I should use past tense because I don't work with the company anymore, but still, it feels very close to me. One of the key points is we tell, let's take a story and put it as a video. And let's compare it with the same story performed by a live person.
Right.
When the story is through video, which is what current generation is mostly, the reach is better for the children. Everything is there. The picturization, the voice, the imagination, everything is on the screen. The children are not using their brain. They are just sitting there and consuming. But when they are watching a live performer, they are engaging with the performer. Their brain is going in different directions, because I'm not going to tell them how the forest looked. I'm going to throw words at them and they are going to imagine how the forest looked. So each child is giving me, oh, I saw a kingfisher, oh, I saw a peacock, when I would have never mentioned there was a bird in the forest. So that's what we say. There's a huge difference when a live performer introduces a story to a children, yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that stood out to me when I first spoke to you was the sheer range of storytelling that you practice, right? Can you just count how many ways of storytelling that it is that you practice or are part of?
Okay, let's go. So the very strong form of storytelling I do is performance storytelling. It's just me, my body, my voice using and taking the whole space and performing. And then I do voice storytelling, where I'm sitting motionless, no expression, but my voice is the only thing tells a story. This is also a party trick where I do it in parties, and I have huge audience in there, because they're just getting the people to feel with voice is different. Then I work a lot with masks. I have Indonesian masks, I have some Indian masks. So I become a character and I use that masks to perform different stories. And then in puppetry, I'm trained.
Wait, puppetry?
Yes.
Like Katputli?
Katputli, ha. So marionettes is one of the formats, but I'm trained in about 4 or 5 different puppetry techniques.
I have never met anybody in my life. I kid you not. I'm 32. In about 20 days, I will be 33. And I've worked in entertainment for I don't know how long, but I have never met anybody who's trained at puppetry. I'm going to bring you back specifically to talk about puppetry on another episode, but I'll come back to that. It's infinitely fascinating to me. Puppetry, right? As a young person, whether it's the Calcutta Puppet Theatre or other places, you get exposed to it. It's fascinating. But 5 forms of puppetry.
Yes.
That's insane.
So I have worked with marionettes, which is your Katputli, and then the traditional shadow puppetry, which is like leather and organic colors. And then I make my own contemporary puppets, which is the stick puppets, glove puppets, finger puppets. This is all I make by myself. And that's puppetry stored from. Then I practice 2 different types of what I call the window storytelling, which is Kamishibai and Kawad. Kamishibai is Japanese technique and Kawad is Indian Rajasthani, where you have pictures set up and every time the picture moves, you tell a story. And couple of new contemporary art form of storytelling I use is spider tangle and the tear paper. So spider tangle is you start with a ball of yarn with all the people in your audience involved. So each time yarn goes to one person, they share a small anecdote, and as such, at the end, it's a collective experience. And because everybody is holding on to the point of their yarn, there's a huge spider web that's formed, and that's beautiful. And tear paper is you start with A4 size, but as the story goes, the paper gets transformed, and through the story, it gets transformed through the final product or the final end of the story. So these are some of the techniques I have been practicing all many years.
That sounds amazing. Rathy, at last count, I think we were at 9 or 10 forms of storytelling.
I think so. I am blanking out a lot, but these are some of the things that I practice on a, I can't say daily basis because of Corona. I can say monthly basis.
No, but it's fantastic. And let me ask you about Corona before I ask you about more of your storytelling. So how's it been? I mean, while a lot of this has changed the way that we look at storytelling and the way audiences consume stories as well, it's become harder to do, especially intimate forms of performance art, right? So how's it been? How are you coping? Are you moving more towards digital performances? Is that working well?
Like everybody needs validation, right? Yeah, but for artists, Absolutely. For storytellers, it's the instant gratification is the drug. You tell a story, you get immediate reaction. Of course, claps, but also people interacting with you, what part of the story they like. And especially with children, if there are 40 children in my class, I'm going to get 40 different feedback from them for sure. They are going to tell me whether they like it. They are going to tell me if it was nonsense. But it's going to happen because they don't hold back. And in digital, the current situation, that's not happening at all. The receiving part of storytelling is almost zero. I did 3 or 4 workshops and few sessions with children. I couldn't interact with the screen. I had to mute them all. And if I had them on a speaker, they'll be each speaking. And it was just chaos. And I was wondering what happened. Just what happened. It's not the same. We are trying, and there are amazing storytellers out there who have been like constantly doing shows every week online. But it has become one side. We are speaking to a screen. It's more like a video recording, and we put it out there. There's no interaction. There's no child interrupting me in the middle of the story saying, but princess was taken away by the dragon. That's not happening, which I so wish would get back soon.
Yeah, man. I can imagine. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Because whether it is you performing live at the other side of the screen or whether it's a recording, it's a screen.
Yes.
And that I'm sure is a barrier to connect, especially with children, right? I have so many questions for you, Rathy. I mean, just like everything you say sparks another question that how do you manage this and hey, how do you do that? But I'm gonna hold that and I'm gonna keep this in a sort of a narrative. So tell me how you got started with all of this, right? Now you've got to a point where you're a master storyteller at about 7 or 8 art forms. I'm sure you derive a lot of fulfillment out of doing this as well. Apart from it, I mean, you figured out a way to make it work monetarily for you. It gives you fulfillment. It's something, I mean, to me, you have a dream job, right?
Yes.
But yes. I mean, I wouldn't even begin to think that it's always been a dream run, right? I'm sure it's been difficult. I'm sure it's been a strange journey from everything from explaining to your parents what it is that you want to do all the way to your bank. So I'm going to leave it to you to give us a sense of how you got started in this journey of becoming a storyteller.
It's very interesting because I studied engineering. I'm a leather technologist and I was in the industry for about...
I've never heard of that engineering degree either. I'm an engineer.
Would you believe from 11th standard, it was my dream to become a leather technologist?
I mean, I believe in the power of dreams and I believe in you, Rathy, but that is just an amazing thing.
No, yeah, so... there are thousands of streams of engineering and I was stuck on leather technologies because of this one person I met during one of my exchange programs and I wanted to study under him. So I eventually joined the college. I was a rank holder and nonsense. That's immaterial. Chalega, past me. It has been 20 years since.
Right.
But what happened after I graduated and I joined the industry was there are not many females in the industry. Now, as an older person, if I had been in the same situation, maybe I would have fought back. I would have stood my ground and so on. But back then I was just 20. I had just turned 20 and it was completely new to me. So in about 2.5 years.
And you were still in Chennai?
This was Madhya Pradesh. I was not even in my own state.
Wait. Give us those details because usually I don't press for like personal details and I'm like, but here I think the story of your story is just I would love to know a little bit of where you've been, because, okay, before I let you continue, my listeners should know that Rathy does storytelling in English, Hindi and Tamil, along with a couple of other languages. Malayalam, I think, was the fourth that you do a little bit, right? So obviously there's no sort of linguistic barrier. You've done it across languages. So we'd love to know like a little bit more about how that also came about. So Madhya Pradesh, very early leather technology, back to you.
Yeah. So after college, I got a job, dream job again in Madhya Pradesh, Indore. No, it was in Dewas, a small village, but we lived in Indore, which was a fairly big city. But things happened in the industry. Like I was maybe one of the 8 females in the whole 100 acres of land, maybe like about 1,400 men and 8 or 9 females in the whole company. So,
and women are not allowed in leather tech.
It's not like not allowed. It's not viable. A hide is about 7 kgs. And in the shop, a man would be walking around with 4 or 5 like cow hides on them. Just imagine a 40 kg person like me carrying 7 5 kg hides across 100-meter yard. Not gonna happen. Like, I did it for a couple of days to show, hey, I can also do this. But at the end of the year, I was like, yeah, I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
I can do this. Do I want to do this?
Yeah. Also, the men, they're used to a form of behaving with themselves, and a new person coming in, they're not going to change. And as a 20-year-old, it was just difficult for me, so I quit. But interestingly, when I came back, I wanted to do things that made me happy. Right. So I have waited tables in restaurant, I have ghost-written content, I've worked for event management companies, I have like compared, I have worked with a culinary association. Pretty much I have done every job out there except a maid and a mechanic. And one of the things I eventually ended up doing was writing for a play, because I was ghostwriting. So let's try playwriting script. Yeah. So I ended up doing it, and it worked. And I ended up being a theater artist, just like that. But it was fun. Putting myself in different shoes was fun. And one director, why don't you start acting? My first role was a tree. I was a dancing tree. And I was on stage for 2 hours just dancing while the hero and heroine were running around me doing their whatever shenanigans they are. It was fun. Now, when I finished, everybody came and praised, and that instant gratification, the claps that you get is just good. So that's how I became a theatre artist. I started acting, I started writing first, then I started acting, and I eventually ended up doing production, lights, because it's so fascinating. I just wanted to learn a lot. But theatre doesn't pay. I could act in 4 plays. Maybe one of them would give me food money or petrol charges, but other 3 are going to say, Rathy, it's theatre, we don't get paid, and all that nonsense. So I was looking at alternative ways to, put food on my table, as you said. And I ended up meeting this person who introduced me to this organization, Book Lovers Program for Schools. So the first 2 years, I was a freelancer with them. I'll just travel with them to different parts of the country, stay whichever hotel they put me up, meet the children, tell stories for a couple of days, and then get back. But eventually what happened is they looked at my work, they looked how much change I was making, because the school started asking for Rathy. Why don't you send Rathy the storyteller? The children are asking for her. So the company opened up a position, and they asked, would you join us as a head of operations? You're good at it. You have lots of connections because you are in theatre and you have been in the industry for about 10 years. So why don't you join us as a head of operations? I gave it a thought. It's an amazing product. Like I said, it's a dream job. Telling stories, reading storybooks, because in India, the amount of storybooks that come out every month is amazing. Like Tulika, Tara, it might not be out there, but it's still there. So in any given day, I'll walk into the office and my table would have about 10 or 15 new publications that has been sent for, is it good for storytelling? Like a classic test. That was my job. Read stories, tell stories, and you get paid for traveling. Why would I do it? So that was my last 4 years. I worked as head of ops, and in 2019, I was promoted to the VP of the company because the founders were completely stepping out. It was a joyride for me. I just woke up in the morning and I think, okay, I have to be here today. Let's go do it. So it's fun.
That's wonderful, man. I love it when people talk about things that they really truly have enjoyed doing, and there's like no joy that comes through as much as when people talk about it, and it really comes through when you do. Let me ask you this: that I mean, you've seen storytelling change, right? You've seen it go from theater or more intimate forms or more smaller forms to now where you have large festivals sort of dedicated to storytelling, right? You have a Jasn Rekhta, you have a commune doing their own bit, and with spoken that happens in Bombay. There's a huge demand for storytelling in storytellers, and while the kids aspect is something that you're so ably shouldering and have done, there is a much larger audience for these stories now, right? Everything's content, right? There is it's not even called entertainment anymore. It's not even called storytelling. It's not even called engaging. It's just content. And content is like, it's a bucket. You're filling contents. How do you think, how you've practiced storytelling? And I'm not asking you to comment on the industry at large, saying, okay, tell us what are the big trends in storytelling. But in your experience and how you have developed and owned your own art, how has the impact of digital storytelling changed things, or has it changed things at all? Have the rules become different, or is it more of the same, a little bit of a tweak? What do you think?
I am still not sure how much change has been made because it's just 5 months since we adopted the digital technology. And also we are not in a state to go out there and do a research analysis of how much change and how much impact. I'm still at, blindsided there. I don't know if it's impacted, but for me, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do digital storytelling mainly because the children are subjected to 8 hours of screen time every day in the form of online schooling.
Right.
They don't have recess anymore. They don't have lunch because children are eating anytime, sitting at home. And that's just training. Even if I'm performing the most wonderful story, I don't want child to look at the screen for another 40 minutes at the end of the day because the children are not the deciding factor. The parents are the ones who are going to say, no, you have to attend this workshop. You have to attend this storytelling. Like a nephew of mine, they have stopped their child's education for this year because she's in class 1. For her to understand logging in, watching a screen, replying, emailing, it's not going to happen. Unless you have a full-time parent with a child, it's not going to happen. I'm blindsided, yes. I still don't know how much it's going to impact. I wouldn't want to do it for a younger generation, mainly because I don't want to strain them. This is a form of art that brings joy. Till pre-corona, like the decision makers might be adults, like 80-year-old cynical grandfather, but the moment he sees a performance, he smiles, he wants to listen to it again. But right now, that's not the case. And he'll be like, yeah, yet another content, yet another storyteller. I'm just looking at a screen. And he's not going to sign up for it. And the child is going to be deprived of it. So I'm very confused. I still have to learn from the recent change that has been made. Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense the way you say it, and it is quite early. It is hard to predict, especially on the form side, right? What is the form of the storytelling? Has it changed the content of your stories? Has it impacted? Is lockdown the
way I do it has changed because now I have to limit myself to. So this is what in theater you occupy the whole stage. And in media, which is TV and movies, you have to stick to the camera.
Right, to the camera.
It's the same here. I can't use my whole room to perform. Where I'm doing an elephant, I'm going to go big. I'm going to have trunks. But here I have to sit, look, and be conscious of my screen. Is my elephant inside the screen? Is my elephant outside? That is very hard.
Wow, that sounds really a big performative challenge.
Yes.
I think as an artist, you have to find new ways of dealing with these constraints and sort of new techniques maybe that come through.
That also takes away the joy of watching.
It does.
Yes. Like if I am showing you different animals, my body transforms, you're hooked. You want to see.
Absolutely.
If I'm just telling you the elephant was there, the tiger was there, you're going to go, oh, Rathy, that's boring. So
the show don't tell principle, pretty much, right? Absolutely. Yes. I have a couple more questions on this, right? At this point, I can't think of anyone better equipped to answer this, maybe apart from my mom, who's also a teacher, who's spending 25, 30 years teaching. But fundamentally, it is different how adults and kids perceive and consume and get hooked to stories, right?
Yes.
Tell us about what are some points of difference where kids' grasp of storytelling is just so impressive. Tell us some anecdotes about some of these stories that have taken hold with kids and how they react differently versus adults when you tell them those stories.
There's a huge, one of the major points I talk about in my storytelling, or rather it has become a life mantra, is colorism. I talk a lot about colorism, and there are stories so much because colorism is one of the topics of Indian history forever. When I talk about colorism stories to adults, they'll have signs of pity. They will have signs of, oh, that's so wrong, we shouldn't do it. But they're not going to change. They are going to go, it's for that 30 seconds after the storytelling when they're talking to you, but they walk out and it's out. It's out of their brain. So one of the main reasons I became a storyteller, though it was just a means of money for me initially, was this one particular incident that happened in Erode. Erode is a district near Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu. I had been to a classroom, and you see, I'm very dark. I'm even for Indian side, I'm on the darker side of dark. So I walked into a classroom. This 4th standard kid got up immediately. There was no welcome, no good morning, good afternoon, nothing. Immediately, ma'am, are you from Africa? It is immediate. And it happens. I've had this question from children forever, but this was the first time I was facing. And the class teacher there was embarrassed. She shouted at him. She wanted to send him to the principal's room. And I was like, no, let's just talk. And I asked him, why do you ask that? Really, you're looking very dark. And I asked him to put his hand in front and compared my hand with his hands. I'm like, but you're as dark as me. They were confused. So I started asking questions. Why do you think I am from Africa? Just because I'm dark. And they started telling what they have been facing. Their mothers calling them blackie, which is karpi in Tamil. And their friends calling them different derogative words. Kala, that was a word that was a recent debate and stuff. And finally, I said, okay, I'll tell you stories. And I told them stories of what I faced because of my color and how much disadvantage I was in because of my colors. And I stopped at it. I didn't give them lessons, which is one major point. I don't talk about lessons. I don't talk about moral policing at all in my storytelling. I stopped my stories and I said, bye. And I left. So we do a month, every quarter we visit the same school again in the school year. So the next quarter when I went back, the 3-4 kids came running towards me as soon as I entered the school, and they were like, ma'am, and I was like, what happened? And the boys have stopped calling us blackie.
Beautiful.
That was when I realized how
that's beautiful,
powerful storytelling is. I have had experience with adults, which is why are they reacting like this? I'm gonna punch them. This is a fake reaction, and I move on. But the children, they take it inside. When I talk to them about empathy, they understand and they absorb. It's not just understanding, they practice it. When I talk to them about colorism, I talk to them about gender disparity, they listen to me. There's a change that happens when you're addressing children, which never happens when you're addressing adults. Like you said, it has become a content for adults. And with children, it's not content. Somebody is talking to me, let me listen to them.
Wow, man, that was intense and important. I mean, I relate very hard to this as well, right? My mom has been a teacher for the longest time. And she's also, as you can tell, I'm also dark. My mom's also dark. She's faced something like this for the rest of for a lot of her life as well. So it hits home very close to me as well when you tell this story. But the cherry on top was your takeaway when you go back there 3 months later and you see the change and you see the impact of your work. I can't believe that there is anything that might be more gratifying than that as a story.
Exactly. Like it has happened multiple times over the course of my storytelling. I addressed the school in Tumkur in Karnataka. I addressed in school assembly because I walked in and I saw a bunch of class, not just boys, a bunch of classmates, a mix of both gender, bullying a girl. I just went mad. But the teachers reported back. That is what like keeps me going. It's just not I'm sending something into the void and moving on. I get in like information back. Okay, this has made a change. This has caused something to happen. That's just good way to do this job. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Let me ask you quickly about a topic that doesn't get discussed in stories in India specifically, is caste, right? And especially when you're telling stories from the ground up, or you're telling stories from the folk perspective, or you're telling stories in folk art forms, right? Caste is a very important and sort of dominant theme in some of those stories as well. Do you focus on telling stories about caste? And if you do, what's the general reception like? I think it's very uncomfortable for most Indians to talk about or to hear stories that have something to do with caste. What's your experience been?
So the stories we tell is graded for the age group. So till about third standard, we don't touch about gender. We lightly talk about gender disparity when we are discussing, but there are not much stories about it. But as we grow older, fourth, fifth is when we start talking about caste discrimination, gender discrimination, color discrimination, and all. Especially around the age group of class 5, we tell the story called "The Boy Who Asked Why" by Soumya Rajendran. It's the story of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, but it is not what you hear as an adult.
Right.
Did this, that, this. But as a child, what he faced. The name of caste, the caste, nothing is mentioned, just him walking into a classroom and him being like humiliated. And that's where we start. This is the starting point of the whole caste debate. And then we talk about what the children see on a daily basis, their maids or the people on the street, how their parents like behave with them. That's where we start with the caste discrimination. And it's been powerful. Maybe as they grow up, they forget about it. But I have seen children who, after reading these storybooks, come back and be a little more empathetical towards other people. I haven't seen many RTE kids, but I've seen lots of RTE kids in Karnataka. RTE is Right to Education, where they free education, tribal kids mostly. After reading the stories, I've seen the children change the way how they behave to RTE kids, and that's really nice to see.
That's fabulous, man. I have always believed that stories have the most power to nudge behavior change, right?
Yes.
And I mean, in my day job, Rathy, I do it for brands, right? That's what you do. You try and interpret stories and you try and interpret behavior and make interventions so that it helps a brand sell more, right? And which is also, a noble pursuit in the 21st century now, I think. But this is where it's at. I mean, to see, an RTE kid probably going to like first person generation, his entire family go to school for the first time, like formal education, and there he or she might be facing some kind of discrimination, I'm sure are facing some kind of discrimination, subtle or unsubtle.
It's not just discrimination. Their way of looking at others is also different. They are used to a certain way of living, and this is completely different. There's this book by Tulika which amazingly Kali and the Rat Snake. It's this amazing. You should. I'll give you suggestions of all the storybooks.
Please, definitely. There's an entire section on this show about suggestions from you.
Yeah. So Kali and Rat Snake is a RTE kid who joins a school. And the first day he introduces himself, I'm Kali, my father is a rat catcher, just a snake catcher. And how everybody behaves towards him just because he said, my father is a snake catcher. And over the course of the book, how he changes his perspective, how the children change his perspective towards it's good. It's really good. Yeah.
It sounds fascinating. And I will take you up on that recommendation. Kali and the Rat Snake. But back to what we were talking about, which is the power of content or power of entertainment or power of stories to bring about behavior change. It's very interesting and very heartening to know that it's true even at a very organic and human level, right? Let me pivot this conversation back to one of the one of my favorite aspects of the kind of storytelling that you do, which is puppets, right?
Yes.
Tell us more. I mean, we heard about how you got into storytelling, but how did puppeteering happen? Where did you start? Where did you learn? And where can I come and watch a show?
So initially, when I was training for theatre, like after becoming a writer, I wanted to become an actor, and I joined lots of courses. I went to lots of workshops, and one of these workshops I attended, they had put together different forms of theatre as a crash course, like 40 days, but every day you will be looking at something different. So one of the days was storyteller, was puppetry. Unfortunately for me, the puppeteer fell sick and he couldn't show up to the venue. It was and the whole day we were free. But it was curious for me. I wanted to know what he did. So I went back and I tracked him down. I started, talking to him. And that's how I initially became interested in puppeteering. Then first I started learning the contemporary art form, which is like you make your own puppets and you see how it behaves, you learn how it moves, and that's what I started. And then I started going back to the traditional form of Kathputli and shadow puppets. I had learned from this master how to move the puppets and how to do it and stuff. But a very interesting anecdote is the first time I was supposed to do a shadow puppetry performance. I was supposed to do Ramayana and Mahabharata, small stories of retelling from it. The previous day I was in Coimbatore in a residential school. The principal sort of, hey, you're a puppeteer, right? Tonight we have one overnight performance of a local puppeteer coming in performing Chitrakatha, like the puppeteer. I said, okay, I'd love to watch. So I skipped my meal and sleep and I went over the overnight show. It was amazing. It was like a team of 40 people singing and, moving the puppets. The light keeps going on and off. And I'm like, I am one person doing all of this. There's no way I'm going to do this. I was completely shattered. To see that before the day of your debut performance, it's just not going to happen. But what happened was after the show, the puppeteer, the master, he called me backstage and he's like, hey, you're also puppeteer. And I'm like, yes, not like you. But then he talked to me. He gave me lessons on what I should concentrate and what I should forget. I still don't think I am good at it because just the masters who have been before me are amazing and I'm not even 1%. But that set a pace for me. I wanted to become something because of that. Now I've performed in Delhi. I've performed in every major city in India. I think I'm a lot better than what I was a few years back. But if I had not seen that show the day before my show, I don't think I would stand here. It was just eye-opening for me to see such a huge performance. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds so great, right? When you talk about something that you've over time become so good at and performed at in so many places. But one day before you were going to do your debut performance, you see this great, it's like, imagine that you have your board exam happening tomorrow and you wake up and your driver is Einstein.
Yeah.
Right?
I so wanted to cancel my performance. I was like, no, I'm not doing it.
That sounds insane, man. And I mean, I really hope to catch one of your performances, whether it's in Bombay or in a city sometime soon. Where is puppeteering now as an art form? If we can just spend a couple of minutes talking about this. Obviously, it's a massive tradition in India, massive tradition globally. Different folk cultures have their own forms of puppeteering. But where does it stand in India right now?
It's dying. My leather puppets, I commissioned from this village in Andhra Pradesh called Nimmalakunta. The whole village they are like the artists of leather puppetry. Right. They make their own organic color and they make their own leather puppet and stuff.
Wait, what is this town called?
Nimmalakunta.
Nimmalakunta, okay.
Yeah. So the last person who is currently doing this art form, if they pass away, the artistry will die. Couple of years back, this major organization wanted to teach couple of their people in puppetry. It's so bad. They searched puppetry in India and my name was the first strike. It's like that. There's not much information out there. There's not much digital presence. Like, I got that project just because my company did a good SEO work and Google could throw me. But there's so many Padmashri and other award puppeteers who don't have any presence at all. They don't have proper guidance how to, like, make this bigger. Like, last year I was performing in Madurai Storytelling Festival and there was this artist from Tanjavur. He's a Padma Shri awardee, but nobody had heard of him. Like, when he was doing the performance, it was so good. I like really enjoyed, but we had never heard of this person before who has a national award with him. That's the state. It's dying art form. I wish I could be the person who, gathers them all up, puts them online, and, there are people out there and stuff. But right now it's in a sad, shoddy state, yes.
Oh, I suddenly feel like we should totally get together and do something like this. But, more on that in a second. I hear you when you say that puppetry is dying, because my only litmus test for whether something is good or is living or dying is, can I name a puppeteer? And right now the only puppeteer I can name is Rathy, right? So while that is one challenge, what is the state of and how are young people getting into it is also something that I'm a little curious about, right? Because you got into it because one day somewhere one guy was supposed to show up, didn't show up, your interest peaked, right? But are there any efforts to get young people into puppetry? Anything of that sort?
I do workshops. I do a lot of workshops on puppetry, but the contemporary form of puppetry is easier to do with chart and sticks and, whatever things are available around the house. The traditional format is expensive. The investment. I have just leather puppets. I think I have about 20 puppets, and each puppet costs me about 3 or 4K.
Right. Wow.
And for each performance, I have to custom make a different puppet. Yes,
look different, act different.
Yeah, I can't use a Sita puppet for when I'm telling a story about modern day Urvashi or somebody. Sure. I can't do it. Children would call me out like, "This is Queen Sita. Why are you using it here?" So I have to make a different puppet for every story. So it's a huge investment. And also marionettes, like Rajasthan Kathputlis, they are musical marionettes. They have a certain way. They are either king or queen, or they are just musical. But I need different characters. So every time I see a new puppet, I buy. I think Rajasthani Kathputlis, I have about 15 like pairs of things. But they were all the same person holding the magudi. What do you call it in Hindi? The snake charming musical instrument.
Oh, right. So it's called the bean in Hindi.
Yeah. Bean, we call it magudi in Tamil. So every Kathputli is the standard pose for them because they make it to be hung on walls as a decor. They are not making it to, make marionettes.
Right.
So I have to get them and then unstitch it, custom make it for each character. It's a huge investment. Like every field, if it's easier to do, it will survive. So the contemporary art form of making it in, just with chart paper, it's working. Lots of people are doing it. It's not the same as the traditional leather and the Kathputlis. That's not happening. Unfortunately, that I don't know how to answer to that either.
No, we don't have to find a solution, but it's lovely to know from someone who knows the form inside out, right? Mm-hmm. That this is how it is. So please go on. Sorry.
No, if I say a puppet is 3K, the people deserve, Nimlakunta people, when they make it, there's a process to it. There's a method to it. I cannot go tell them, why don't you make this puppet at 500 rupees? When the cost of making it is huge, they can't reduce the pricing of it. So it's just interesting. Somebody will bring out a solution. As an artist, I can't think of the solution.
I have been inspired. I will think about this for sure. It's a shame to hear the state that things are in. And again, I did not know about Nimlakunta, but I'll definitely find out more about this because, man, we need new forms of storytelling. How many memes and how many memes of the same type are people going to keep sending each other, man? We need to find a way to have better, stronger forms of storytelling getting retained and passed down our generations. Rathy, truly fascinating to have you on and talk about this so far. I have a last couple of questions
Sure.
to ask you. You told us about your journey so far. You told us about how storytelling happened to you, how puppetry happened to you. You also told us about your work with kids. We talked about your journey in the lockdown as well. What next? And what keeps you going apart from that validation loop, apart from seeing the impact of your work? What's the big ambition for Rathy as a storyteller?
What's the big ambition? Just maximizing the reach. Like if I had worked with 80 schools in the past 4 years, I would love to work with 200 schools in the coming up years. I do these workshops. I teach teachers on how to use storytelling as an unconventional way of teaching in classrooms. I think over the last 3 years, every Saturday I used to travel out to a new rural place, because my target group is teachers who are from a rural area, not city bred teachers. I would love to do that more. I want to mentor more teachers because they are reading and learning language. For me to teach them and them adapting and telling me this worked, ma'am, that didn't work, that's what I want to do more. It's like indirect reach to children, which eventually is what my goal is. Like reach more children, reach more teachers, perform in more storytelling festivals and get paid for it, of course.
I mean, that sounds great, right? Obviously, more power to you in your journey to do that. I love the fact that you talked about teaching more teachers how to teach better. I think that's super important as well. Teaching is, again, not one of those professions that can be done mechanically by reading out from a textbook. And it can be done like that, but it doesn't have the best impact. You talked about storytelling festivals. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about some big ones in India, around the world? We talked about Jashn-e-Rekhta and Spoken. A few more that you can tell us about?
So this Buckaroo Literature Festival, it's for children. Last year, I think it happened in seven different places, or 9, I'm not sure. I'm lost.
This is called Buckaroo.
Buckaroo, yeah.
Buckaroo. Oh, Buckaroo. Okay, all right. Like Bonnaroo.
So it is done by these two people, Swati and Venkatesh. They originally run a bookshop. If I'm not wrong, I might be getting their history wrong, but they are the founders of this festival. Sure. Last year it happened in Gangtok, Varanasi, it happened in Vadodara, Bhopal, like most of the places where you wouldn't heard literature festival would happen. It has happened there. Right. And this is a 2-day festival mainly for children. Adults can come in, but this is outright for children. So you have different authors from across the country and some foreign authors coming in, different storytellers. Like there's Deepak who plays guitar when he's telling his story. There are different formats of storytelling going on. That's Buckaroo. I performed 4 different venues. If I'm right, I'm not sure. And then Madurai started having literature festival last year for children. This was also by a bookstore person called Surya. And I performed there. And last year, Bangalore had a children's wing for the literature festival, Bangalore Literature Festival. So I performed there I did a mass storytelling and I did shadow puppetry again there.
Lovely. And my sort of last question about books and storytelling is, since you're someone who comes across a lot of stories for children specifically, right? What would be your sort of advice to someone who's writing stories for kids? I have a few friends who have written, illustrated books for kids and but it's an emerging genre, the way I understand it, right? More and more, especially Indians, are writing books for kids. What would be your advice when writing stories for kids?
Become a child.
Fantastic.
Think from a child's perspective. What you're thinking about teaching them logic and all that, it's not going to work. The moment you think from a child's perspective, then your story works. There are like amazing works where like complicated logic and all that information, children hate it. As an adult, I like those books, but children are like, why will I read this?
Right.
But there are books which are complete nonsense, where a boy who keeps eating momos becomes a momo. Like stories like that, which is fun, which is like exactly what they would be thinking. If I eat a lot of watermelon, my stomach will have watermelon. So think like that. So become a child. Think from a child's perspective. Your book will do good.
Fantastic. I think there cannot be better advice than that. Rathy, like I said, been wonderful to have you on the show. There is this last question that I ask every guest that I have here. And for you, I don't want it to be just a question. Please take your time and give us as many recommendations as you can for children's books, children's entertainment, any stories, anything goes. The canvas is yours to give us some great recommendations.
Okay, I'll go publication wise. That's easier in my brain. So I'll go with Miss Mochi Books, which is Chennai based. They have Mary the Elephant for 2 years plus older. There's Ramu and Ramya. Ramu and something. So similarly, Ramya and something. So Ramu and Ramya series. So why I recommend these books? They are very much Indian context. The child is eating dosa, riding in a bicycle. They are not eating pancakes and riding in BMWs. They are very Indian context, very Indian characters. The child relates to it. That's the 3 books. Like it's a series of books, but 3 titles. Then there is Gajupati Kulapati series by Tulika. It's written by Ashok Rajagopalan. It's this huge elephant that lives in the temple, and the series of misadventures it goes through. It has fart jokes, it has burp jokes, it has all sort of children's jokes that the children love it. And then there is Soumya Rajendran's books, which I already told you about. The boy who asked why the princesses to rescue, where the princesses take their life in their own hand. They are not waiting for the prince to come save them. It's an amazing book. Then we have Tulika. Tulika has amazing book in the empathy series. All their books, though they don't have an outright moral message, what the child would learn out of it. There's Kanna Panna. There's Kali and the Raj Snake, A Home on Our Own. Then, oh Lord, why am I blacking out now?
No, you're not blanking out. You've given me like 20.
Okay.
You're not blanking out.
Tulika has amazing storybook that way. And Tara has constructional books. Their knock book opens out, like as a child knocks on the door, new doors keep opening and it opens out to be a huge puzzle. There's this...
it's like a 3D book sort of.
Yeah, 3D book. It's not
lovely.
It's not a traditional format. Then they have this Noah's Ark, which opens out as a boat, and the pages are painted blue with sea and the sea creatures. So it's like a circular boat sort of shape. They don't constrain themselves to the physical form of book. They keep changing how the book changes and as per the story. That's Tara. Then we have Tota books, which have some really nice. Pickle Yolk book had come up with this amazing book called Macher Joel last year, where a child takes care of his father, and there's a twist towards the end, and it's like when the twist comes about, it blows your mind. Then Tukpa for All, which has a similar story like Macher Joel, but it's set in Ladakh. So cultural difference is interesting. So even though the story is similar similar plotline, just because they explore different parts of India, it becomes a different story. Like when I read Tukpa for All, when I told it to children in Tamil Nadu, they had not heard the cultural differences in Ladakh and here. And similar for Macher Joel, like showing the whole Calcutta in a book, it was different. So that's what Indian books are trying to do. It's just amazing set of books.
More power to Indian books and Indian storytellers. I think that was the most comprehensive recommendation segment that we've had on this show. And thank you for that, Rathy. It has been amazing hearing you talk about storytelling and talk about your own stories. And just fantastic, man. It's been eye-opening, and I don't get to say that many times, right? Talking to you has given me perspective about what are the different unexplored yet so pertinent forms of storytelling that are out and abound in this country, and how children of all places are vehicles for change through these stories for us.
Yes.
Truly fantastic talking to you, Rathy. Thank you so much
Thank you so much, Vineet, for having
me. And you have a lovely, lovely day and a lovely weekend ahead. To my listeners, please go check out Rathy's work. Google her. Find more Indian stories, Indian storytellers in your own time. If you have kids, if you're listening to the show and you have kids, first of all, why? Second, tell them some nice stories, right? Take the cue. storytelling is the best pedagogy for kids. With that, we've come to the end of another episode of Storytellers and Story Sellers. This is Vineet Kanabar and Rathy saying goodbye.
I hope you enjoyed that show. So another really fun week on the network. I don't know if you saw this, but Varun Thakur was on Advertising is Dead. That was a really, really fun episode. Besides that, we've had some great guests all over the place. We had Ram Madhvani on Cyrus Says. We had Saurav Mukherjee, a legend in the finance space. He was on Pesa Vesa. He and Anupam have co-written a book, so definitely do check out that episode and go buy their book too. I mean, like, that would be another great thing to do. Uncle Please It had a really, really cool episode with hosts of our other show, Mr. and Mrs. Binge Watch, Anirudh and Janice. They were talking about celebrity culture and how that's progressed for the last few years. And yeah, it's just been a really, really great week. One episode I do want to shout out. A couple of weeks ago, Pulyabazi did an episode which was just amazing. They were talking about the letters between Mahatma Gandhi and Rabindranath Tagore. Do check those out. Those are really good. And with that, hope to see you again next week.
Have you ever wondered how successful people do their thing? How do they navigate the challenges they often face? Are you wondering about the future of restaurants, film, education, technology, and everything else in between? Hi, I'm Gauri Devidyal, best known for being one of the brains behind The Table, an award-winning restaurant in Bombay. One thing my life as a restaurateur has given me is the opportunity to meet with some truly inspiring people, most often just by chatting with strangers at the community table. And that's what this podcast is about. It's about learning the new dimensions of business and understanding how different people swim this sea. It's an opportunity for me to pick their brains and ask them all the questions on my mind, whether it's about learning from their past experiences or talking about future trends. Through their journeys, stories, and insights, I hope you too, like me, will come away inspired and energized. So come, join me every Wednesday with your favorite drink, because this round is on me.